Very good. Well, welcome. This is our Indispensable Leader Gathering. This is Ability Ministry, and we're glad that you have tuned in to join us this week as we talk about a really important topic. So many times, I think churches, honestly, are getting pretty good at what I like to call starting line ministries. The starting line would include things like buddy systems, respite, prom. These are things that maybe are a one-time event, or maybe are things that are fairly easy to get buy-in on. But not many churches are looking down the road further towards the finish line. And honestly, I think the finish line is more metaphorical than anything else, because there really is no finish line in disability ministry at all, because we all, keep going until because there's always something new. But towards the finish line, I think there are a couple big things that the church should be addressing. Two of those things in particular, I think, are residential ministry and employment. And today I'm really excited that we're going to tackle one of those two. We're going to be talking about employment and how the church can engage in that. And we're really excited to have Michele from Dutton Farm with us as our special guest today, as she's going to kind of drive some of this conversation on employment and what they've done up in Rochester, Michigan. So we're excited to get into that. So some of those statistics, like I said, are really important to be able to keep track of as you're looking at employment and the world of disability, because we can see that people affected by disability are not employed at a very high rate, and many of them want to be employed. And that's why we believe that the church has something to say about that, or should have something to say about that. And that's why we have brought today our special guest, Michele from Dutton Farm in Rochester, Michigan. So Michele, I'd just like for you, for just a second, introduce yourself to us, because not everybody, I don't think, knows you on this call. And for those that will be watching this video afterward, tell us a little bit about yourself, and yeah, just help us get to know you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Michele Smither, and I am one of the founders of Dutton Farm, which started out to be a day program in Rochester, Michigan. I have 6 biological children and 8 adopted children. One of my third child, biological, has Down syndrome, and she is 45 now. And then we have 3 of our adopted children have special needs, unbeknownst to us when we adopted them. But some of them are EI, some of them have just cognitive impairments and different disabilities. No one is physically disabled. So when my daughter, Rebecca, got out of school at 26 in Michigan, we looked and looked and looked for things for her to do. And she started school, she was born in 1975, which was actually the beginning of IDEA, which I didn't realize. So before that, she probably wouldn't have even been able to go to school. And so it was a little bit rusty when she was starting, because everything was pretty new. She started at age 4. So she went to 26, did the post-high program, and then pretty much everything ended. And I realized, to my dismay, that inclusion really kind of ended at 26. Adult life was not inclusive. Jobs were not inclusive. Higher education was not inclusive. So we were kind of back at square one. So that led us, we had bought some property next to our residence that we were going to build her a house and have her live by us with some roommates. We had it all figured out. But she didn't want to do that. And we're firm believers in choice, and that they should have choices just like all of us. And that's the premise of the farm, basically. So we decided, okay, we'll turn this into a program. So we invited half a dozen of her friends who were in the same predicament to come and join her a couple days a week, and we would develop it into something. So the Lord kind of took it into something way beyond which we had even dreamed of, but that was because the need is so great, which I guess I hadn't really considered that, that there were so many people in the same position as us. So now we serve 75, 80 people, and we have divided it into 3 different divisions. There's a adult ed portion, there is a job skills portion, I guess there's 4, a community involvement portion, and an actual employment portion. So that's who we are, and we change as the need arises. The Lord shows us a door to open, and we just, oh, that's a need. We need to figure out how to make that happen.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And when did Dutton Farm officially kind of open as a day program in its earliest stages?
2010 was our opening, and yeah, we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary, and it's evolved into something way bigger, but that's usually what God does, right? He takes our little seed, our little offering, our loaf and fishes, and makes it into what it should be. So we're excited, and we're very proud of it.
Yeah, that's incredible. And in 10 years, you went from having a dream for your daughter to having nearly 100 people kind of on your property. Yes. Monday through Friday. Is it a Monday through Friday program?
Yeah, it started out 3 days a week. We thought, oh, that'd be good, and then we went to 4, and now we're at 5. And yeah, so it's just evolving, and the need is great, and it makes me sad to know that there are so many people in that position. But then again, it makes me happy that we're meeting those needs. Everybody isn't on the property because we have people that are out on jobs with job coaches. We have people that are in the community doing volunteer work or just going to whatever, the gym. Obviously things are a little different right now, but we hope to get back to that. So they're not always here all day. They're all, we have divisions, and the people are doing different things.
All right, excellent. And you mentioned it's Dutton Farm. And Jason, I'm wondering if you could do us a favor. Could you put the link to their website in the group chat there? That way, whether people are tuning into this later or now, if they want to jump on the Dutton Farm website, they can go ahead and do that. So that way everybody can see some of the amazing pictures. I love it. It's one thing to talk about it, it's a whole other thing to see pictures. And so I think that I would encourage you guys jump on. They've got a great website. Now, Michele, you mentioned that there are essentially 4 different groups to the Dutton Farm kind of, I don't want to call it a day program because it's more than that. It's a day program. It's an employment program. Right. It's job people on job sites. But can you talk to us real briefly about each of those 4 groups, kind of what a typical day looks like for each of those 4 groups?
Okay. Well, the adult ed program is usually how you enter into Dutton Farm, and then some people choose to stay there, and that's daily living skills, and we do some job training in that, and it's some social, and you work on site at gardens and farming and taking care of the animals and things like that. So it's very comprehensive. They do a lot every day, and some people just enjoy that because it's very predictable and secure, and they maybe aren't as adventurous as some other people. Then we have our employment training, and that's where we sit down with the caregiver and the participant and see where they want to go with their adult life. Do they want to get a job? Do they see themselves in a job? Do they see themselves just volunteering? Or do they see themselves, staying in adult ed? So we weigh all that, and then we kind of point them in the direction that they want to go. I'm a firm believer in that, and that they should have options, and they should be able to pick from those options. And we've had some of the cutest, one of the young men wanted to be the person that ran a merry-go-round. That was his job at one of the local malls. They have a merry-go-round, a literal merry-go-round with the horses and all that. That was what his dream job was. So we said, we'll do our best to make that happen. So we try to figure out what they really want to do and if that's realistic. And then, so that's part of our interview place for our job training. And then we do train to prepare them for that job, and they might decide that, I don't want to do this. It looked good, but now I don't want to. Then we have our CI program where they go into the community, and we clean a trail locally at the park. That's part of their job. So, or they might go to the local park and have lunch, or they avail themselves of all the opportunities in our community that you or I would be able to do. They go to the gym and work out. They volunteer at Meals on Wheels and pack lunches for people. So that's part of our CI program, and it's strictly voluntary, and everybody loves that. We always let them at the beginning of the day, we're going to Meals on Wheels. Who wants to go? And then we let them go if they want to. Then we have our actually employment program. Once they go through the employment training, we line them up with their employer that wants to hire them, and we figure out if they need a job coach or not, and we get all the paperwork in place for that to happen. And we decide if they need a temporary job coach or long-term, and we're open to whichever one they need to do. So that would be the fourth program. And we have a lot of people that are employed, and I can go over that later, but we don't do the typical jobs. You kind of picture people, what you predict people with disabilities will do in the community, and we try to be a little more broad in that and work with their skill level and what they want to do, and then who's willing to hire them. Does that make sense? Did I cover everything well?
No, that's great, and I love the idea that you really work with lining them up with what they want to do and going with their choices. I think that's so important. So many times I think we, when I say we, I'm being very generic here. We pigeonhole people into, oh, they can only be a greeter at Walmart, that type of thing.
Yes.
And people with disabilities really no different than anybody without disabilities. They have different desires and different things that they want to see happen in their life. And you know what, we should, as much as we can, empower them to chase those dreams and find those jobs.
And
so Michele,
skill level, what they can actually do. And we have to be realistic and gently tell them, well, maybe that wouldn't be the best thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because I'd love to be a professional football player, but
right?
that's not realistic for me. I would get destroyed.
And we do give those examples. I would like to be this or whatever, but yeah, it's not something I'm able to do. So what you're able to do and what you want to do have to jive, and it's just like yours has to, exactly. So we use those kinds of examples.
That's great. What you're able to do. Say that again. What you're able to do and what you want to do.
What you're able to do and what you want to do they have to relate to each other.
That's great. That's great. I think that's great advice. Well, Michele, I'd like to steer our conversation a little bit now, because most of the people that will watch this later, and most of the people that are on the call right now, are more directly, they're church employees, they're church volunteers, they work inside the walls of the church. And I want to make sure that we help the church see what is possible, and not only what is, what could be, but what should be. And you and I have had this conversation before, kind of offline, about how the church, they're doing a pretty good job, on Sunday mornings, starting to catch on with, how they can engage with people with disabilities, how they can empower them to do things on Sunday mornings. But our frustration and kind of the phrase that we have used is, what about the other 6 days of the week? So Michele, you've done a great job at Dutton Farm, kind of that Monday through Friday employment and job training and day programming model. But help us see how the church can look beyond Sunday morning and engage their communities the other 6 days of the week, specific to this employment conversation. I'd love to hear your insight on that.
Okay, before I forget, Jeanette, you were talking about starting a ministry. I have started probably 4 or 5 church ministries and help people start them, so I'd be glad to speak with you sometime about that. And they're still up and running after 20-some years, and it's very necessary. So anyway, I think that the church, and I love the programs, and I love prom, and I love all of those things, but yes, the other 6 days, which is why I resigned my position. I was teaching a great special needs Sunday school class at our church for many, many years that I started. the pastor asked me when I approached him about it, he said, well, what do you need? I said, just give me a budget in a classroom and I'll take it from there. And he did, and I did, and it's still going. But I just realized that the rest of the week, everybody just went home and sat, and including my daughter, although, you know, we're more proactive and get her involved in stuff. So that frustrated me. So we started Dutton Farm from that point of view. And I think some of the things the church can do, besides having the ministry, which is awesome, integrating people with disabilities into all aspects of the church that the adults would participate in. You know, working in the nursery, volunteering at different events, maybe passing out things at kids' camps. And so putting them in, so, you know, being ushers, greeters. I have a funny story. I talked them into our pastor into letting one of our people from our class pass the offering basket one Sunday. And he's really gregarious, a great guy. And he was passing and someone put money in and he looked at the person, he goes, "That's it?" And we just chuckled and laughed, but it lightens everything up. It was hilarious. We still laugh about it. But to have it be so normalized that it becomes just a regular part of the congregation. And then I think that I personally think we lead by example. And if you want something to happen, you need to certainly speak it, but you have to show it. So I really believe that every church should have someone employed if they can, or at least a vital part, someone with disabilities, a vital part of the church hierarchy. And people I know don't always think that's possible, but I think it is. And you could hire someone to be assistant to the janitor or help with the grounds or something, and maybe work them into a pay position. But I think that shows the world that we believe that these people are valuable. And we have placed a lot of our Dutton farmers into positions at churches, you know, working in the office doing simple clerical work, or helping the janitor, being the assistant and doing some of the jobs with him. And actually one of the janitors at the church, he is the job coach because he loves this kid so much, or this young man, and he's become his job coach as well. So that's my feeling. I feel like the churches can show the world how it should be done. And we strive to teach churches and show them it's really not as hard as people think it is. And it's a blessing to have people around. It's true integration and inclusivity.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michele, you've given us so much there. I just want to kind of recap a couple of things that you said. And I think back to you know, my days as a children's pastor before I became a disability pastor, and as I worked alongside youth pastors. You know, one of the things that we encouraged our teens to do was to volunteer. Why? Because it's a good resume builder, right? When you get experience volunteering in the church, it's something you could put on a resume. It's really no different for people with disabilities in our community. You know, as we plug them into volunteering in their church, they are gaining really good job skills. Like you mentioned, a position in the nursery, you know, it's great for like childcare experience, you know, a position doing clerical or janitorial skills. These are skills, you know, even if they're just volunteering, and I don't want to say just volunteering, but even if they're volunteering, these are good things that they can put on a resume. These are good experiences that they can have. I think sometimes you don't know whether or not you like something until you're given an opportunity to try it. And volunteering is a great way to do that at church. And I also like what you said about how you can have an assistant to, you know, a position. You know, this isn't, you know, the other 6 days of the week. You know, it's one thing to volunteer on Sunday morning, but it's a different thing to look at the life of a church Monday through Saturday, because so many churches, there's not a lot of activity going on, you know, within the walls of the church. And it's a great training ground for people. You know, if churches are willing to open their doors and maybe have somebody work alongside them, that can be done all under the roof of the church. Or, you know, one thing that you mentioned is you've placed people within churches. So you're sending them job coaches. So talk to us about how a church, if they're interested in becoming a job site for an outside organization like Dutton Farm, because every community has an independent provider or a county board provider or a government provider that has people that they're working with trying to find jobs. So how does a church go about becoming a job site for like an outside group to come in? Because not every church may feel equipped to be a job developer.
I first want to speak to your volunteering, because I think you're so right and volunteering is good for everybody. We should all give back at some point. I mean, I teach my kids, my older kids who are now off and married, and some are missionaries, and that, to whom much is given, much is required. God has blessed you with ability and all that, so you should give back. So I believe that just people with disabilities should have that same thing taught to them, that it's always good to give. So volunteering for them in church or whatever is a good thing. My daughter volunteered for a very long time in the nursery, and to be honest, there was not a good reception in the beginning when I put her on the list. And and of course I was okay, well, yeah, she's doing it, so you're going to have to work out your issue with it, but she's going to be there. But that's how, you had to be back in the day until people got used to it. Well, she did, and they ended up actually starting to pay her because she did such a good job, which I knew she could, but you have to just get past the initial resignation or hesitation of people and just pretend it's not there, which is what I tend to do. But anyway, I think churches would have to meet with someone like us and talk and say, okay, these are some of we can tell you what we have to offer. We have someone who can work on the grounds, who knows how to weed whack or knows how to clean the bathrooms or vacuum or whatever. So how can you fit them into your church employee roster? And so we collaborate with them, we meet, and they meet the person we have in mind, and then we give it a try. So it's just a matter, I think, of approaching them and having some needs in mind. Obviously, considering the population, you're not going to have somebody, do your bulletin, but you can have someone that can help with the grounds or help with the shoveling of the snow. Or, we have one young man who vacuums, and this church is a big building, and he goes in once a week and vacuums it from head to toe, and that's part of how he helps. So it saves the actual janitor a lot of time and money, and he loves it, and he gets paid. So I think just coming up with some needs, meeting with the group, and then more than likely they'll have somebody who can fit that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a good place for a church to start is just doing an honest evaluation of what what are the jobs that need done Monday through Saturday, whether it be groundskeeping. Every church has property that they sit on, unless they are a mobile church that's meeting like at a movie theater or something like that. So you have grounds that need taken care of. Every church has probably somebody Monday through Friday answering phones. So, there's a receptionist opportunity. Every church, probably has some type of printed, like you said, bulletin. So whether it may not be inputting the material, but it may be printing, it may be folding, it may be passing out, or placing these things. Monday morning, every church, has cleanup duty, that they need to do to get everything ready.
Yes.
Yeah. So there are so many jobs within the walls of the church Monday through Saturday that could be done by adults affected by disability. We saw some of the employment rates in the game that we played before we got started. There are only about 37% of people with disabilities that are employed. I guarantee that number is lower now with the pandemic. But just because the number is 37%, that doesn't necessarily mean only 37% of people want to work. It's the opportunities, and churches can provide great opportunities for people affected by disability. And even if they don't feel like they can manage doing, the job placement and training and all that kind of things. There's great organizations like Dutton Farm out there that can work alongside the church and help and partner. I think one of the greatest things that churches can do, this is just my opinion, is admit they can't do everything. I'll say it again. One of the greatest things that churches can do is admit that they can't do everything, and then reach out to community partners and partner in ministry efforts to be a blessing to the community. I think once we get past ourselves and feeling like we have to be the experts in everything, and we lock arms with different community partners, we can be so much more effective in bringing hope to our community. And I'm just so excited about everything that you do there, not only in Rochester, Michigan, but beyond there, and how you've been an example to your community and to so many other ministries. So I want to try to wrap up a little bit here, but something that you haven't mentioned yet, Michele, is something exciting that happened today with Becca.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that, and maybe tell us a little bit about her journey on how she got where she's at right now today.
Okay, yes, I wanted to put that in, so I'm glad you got that up. I should have mentioned there's another part of Dutton Farm that we developed a line of products called Everybody, and it's a division of Dutton Farm that is actually an L3C, which is a company that we pay our farmers. So if they want to work but they don't want to go out in public, we hire them ourselves. So we do put our money where our mouth is. So we have our own business called Everybody, and they make the products, they package them, they label them, and then they sell them out. So, or send them out by, and we also have a little shop that they come to. So that is also a part of that room. So look at Everybody and see if you want to purchase some, because it's all made by people with disabilities. Anyway.
And what Michele just mentioned, I'm going to cut you off for just a second. What Michele just mentioned, we just posted in the chat a link. It's Everybody, INC, everybodyinc.com. So you guys can go there and check out the products. Please go check out their products.
They're awesome.
They are great stuff. I had a chance to go to Rochester, Michigan a couple years ago, bought several things from their shop. It is great, great stuff. I'd encourage you guys, please do go to everybodyinc.com and purchase something for yourself, for a loved one. But I rudely interrupted you, Michele. Please tell us about
that's okay.
Becca's big day.
They also get paid minimum wage. We don't believe in deviated wage at all. So everybody gets paid minimum wage or above. They start out at minimum wage. So everybody that works there gets paid. And one young man, he got his first paycheck from Everybody, and he hung it on his fridge and he wouldn't cash it because he wanted everybody to see his first paycheck. And his mom kept trying to explain to him that, it's money. And he said, no, I want everyone to see that I got a paycheck. So my daughter, Rebecca, she worked for Everybody for a while and she loved it. And like I said, one of my other daughters runs Everybody. And then today she started at her first job at 45 years old, off-site at a coffee shop. And she was a greeter. She served coffee. She worked the register. And they had a great influx of people. The guy was really pumped because he had a huge crowd of people come because she was there working. She's pretty famous in this area. And she was her first day on the job. And she said to me this morning, she went with a job coach who I love. And I dropped her off because there wasn't transportation. So I was the transportation, but I dropped her off and she said, I know what you're going to say, Mom. And I said, what am I going to say? She said, you're going to say, I can't believe my baby has a job. And that blessed my heart. And she was so excited. I've not seen her this excited in a very long time. She only worked a couple hours and we're starting out slow, but she's getting a paycheck and she's got one at Everybody, but this is from someone else. Wonderful man. He hired 6 people with disabilities besides the typical population there. So it's very inclusive to me. And I like seeing it done that way myself. That's my personal opinion because I think it's more, more typical of how the world should look. We should all be together and there shouldn't be like a special needs place where they just work and then a typical place. But this is everybody's working there and doing their job and they all have their assignments. So it was very exciting. It was very exciting to see her so happy and to see her so independent.
That's incredible. And
It was great.
I just love that. And you guys can sense Michelle's excitement and energy
It's on our Facebook.
and blessing and yeah. So I want you as a church leader to imagine the reaction you just saw and the joy that you just saw from Michele talking about Becca getting her job placement. That's the effect that you can have on so many individuals and families in your community. If you think beyond Sunday morning to the 6 other days of the week and you think about employment opportunities, that joy that you just saw from Michele can be owned by many in your community if you're willing to kind of get out of the box of Sunday morning. And I hope that our conversation today has encouraged you to think about that. I would like to open it up to some questions. If you have questions for Michele or just questions in general about disability employment, we'll give a few minutes for that. As you're thinking about your questions, feel free to place them either in the chat or just raise a hand and we'll grab those. But as you're thinking about those questions, I want Jason for a second to grab a link from our one-page documents page on our Ability Ministry website. We have something that we created called a gifts inventory. And essentially, it is a little bit what Michele talked about, honoring the choice of individuals and trying to place them in the right spot inside the church. So we developed a gifts inventory that kind of takes a look at the individual, where their interests are, and then we tried to list almost every single volunteer opportunity that you could find in a church. And so basically you take the gifts inventory, the likes, the interests about the individual, and you flip the page over, and then you try to match them up with a volunteer opportunity in the church. And it's a great one-page document that churches can use to help identify what are those matches. What do you want to do versus what you're able to do? What does the church provide? So Jason just dropped that in the chat link, so I'd encourage you guys to go out and grab that, download that as you're looking at volunteer opportunities for individuals affected by disability in your church, because I think this is a great tool that can help you as part of this whole employment conversation as you're giving people important skills and by volunteering in your churches. So now that I've kind of laid that out, what questions maybe do you have about employment in the church or in the community and how you can be involved? I'll turn it over to you guys.
I have a question. Well, first of all, thank you, Michele. I was so encouraged just to hear just like a hand to help. And I'll contact you via email or I don't know what that looks like, but I'm excited. My question, I think, is right now, again, like we're barely starting and like my boss is always at first I was frustrated, but now I get it. Like she's very loving in the sense of like, I have all these things that I want to do and like, but also like I need to first like cultivate a team and empower them and empower myself with knowledge before I can like, but I'm like, I know God has a vision that is so much bigger than like just what they, I think, had an expectation. I'm like, no, like God is much bigger than that, so this was encouraging to see that like other people believe in this. And I think my question, or I don't know, like when I get to that place where I have a foundational team and like they have, I guess, seen with their own eyes, like, oh, like they are doing well and this is something that has a firm foundation, how would I communicate to like my boss, my leadership, like what are some key, I guess, advice to like have them buy in, right? Like I not that I don't have a platform with them, but our hierarchy is kind of, it's like elder board and then our upper staff and then my boss's boss and then my boss. And my boss is so grateful that she's a big advocate for me. And she always tells me, when you're asking for something, you provide, like all of those statistics I thought was so helpful. But like, by any chance, do you guys know any resources of like how statistics of like how the church has not done or is doing a good job as coming alongside the church, coming alongside people with disabilities, Like, I don't know, like my boss is very, not statistical, but she's like, if you're going to ask for a buy-in or ask for these things, like you need to provide like the why, right? So like, I guess my question is like, how do I, when I get there, I don't know if I'm there yet, but like, how would I do that? What's the best way? Or I don't know.
To me, I think develop connections to people with disabilities and to adults with disabilities. So on your own personally, because that will give you experience and credibility. And it kind of fuels the fire of seeing the need. And that I had it easy because having a daughter with a disability, I was always involved in things, not to the neglect of my other kids, but it was still something that was part of my world. And if it's not, then I think you need to make it part of your world. And so, start getting to know people in group homes or in schools or wherever near you, and invite them to church and bring them into church. And I think the more that people see that and experience that and see your relationship with them, it will encourage people to, oh, this is cool. They'll get to know how wonderful they are. I mean, they're like my favorite people, the people at Dutton Farm. I'd rather be with them than most anybody. They're so wonderful. But I think that would be the way to start, and then define what you want to do. Because the need is so great. It's like when you go into, my son works in Africa, I'll use that. He has a mission in Africa. You go there and you have to step back and look at, you can't look at the big picture because it seems like you can't do anything. But if you narrow it down to what you think you can do and what you think the greatest need that you can meet is, and then the Lord will take it from there. So I guess you have to be specific. Like we just thought, okay, like Jason said, or Ryan said, the 6 days of the week, we just thought, well, we'll fill those 6 days of the week, and then it evolved from there. So I think if you think there needs a class, pick people up and bring them, and start it that way, and then see what God does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Pastors, church leaders, people that are running churches, elders, the main thing that they look at is numbers, and numbers don't lie. So if you can grab those statistics, do so. If you want to hook up later, I can share with you some other statistics that you could take to your leadership. But the other thing that Michele said is, just bring people with you. The greatest thing that you can probably do is introduce people at your church to people with disabilities. If they're not there, bring them there with you, even if it's one at a time.
One thing I'd like to say real quick is every time I approach a pastor, which has been, I don't know, half a dozen times over my life, that we need a special needs program or ministry. And that always their reply is, well, we don't have anybody with special needs here. And I would say, yes, you're making my point that they're not here. I said, actually, you just backed me up, because they're not here because it's not welcoming and inviting. And I always say, I promise you, if you start something, people will come. Mm-hmm. And it's always proved true. So
absolutely. Yeah, we don't have anybody. We don't need it.
Right.
Wrong. That's why you need it.
Jeanette,
right.
Jeanette, I was just going to ask you, do you have some families in the church already that that they have an individual with a disability? It could even be one that you can't visibly see, because I guarantee you they know others. They will bring their friends. They will tell others, and that will be a good way to get people to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're kind of running out of time here, and this has been a great conversation, and we can continue this conversation. Like you said, Jeanette, if you want to connect with Michele, or if you want to connect with us, we can continue that conversation. A couple stats that have come to mind as we've been talking here. 80% of disabilities you can't see with the naked eye. 80% of disabilities are hidden disabilities you can't necessarily see. As you look at the population, as you're talking to your pastor, 25%. If you take the latest CDC statistics, 25% of adults have some form of disability. So as a preacher is looking out at the crowd they're preaching to, you know, churches are starting to reopen. If there's 100 people in front of them, 25 of them live with disability. So disability is a very real thing, even though you can't always see it. Guys, I'm just so thankful that Michele's been with us. I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to introduce you to the ministry there at Dutton Farm and all that she does for Rochester, Michigan and surrounding communities. I hope that this has been an inspiration to you as a ministry leader to think beyond the walls of your church and beyond the box of Sunday morning, to think about those other 6 days of the week, specifically at how the church can engage in the employment conversation. I'm sure that if you want some more guidance, Michele would be open to helping with that, as we would be at Ability Ministry. So feel free to contact us at any time. Our next scheduled meeting, leadership gathering, is July the 9th. We're working on finalizing that topic and guest leader. July 23rd, we're going to talk about one of those other kind of finish line ministry opportunities. We're going to talk about residential ministry. Employment's a big conversation, so is residential. You know, this is a beyond Sunday morning. This is a 6-day, actually it's a 7-day-a-week conversation when we talk about residential ministry and what that can look like for churches and how they can engage. So that's July 23rd. We're looking at nailing down the topic and guest for July 29th. But we're thankful for Michele bringing us some great thoughts on this employment conversation. And we're thankful that you have joined us today. We will be signing off now. We hope to see you again in 2 weeks. Thank you, Michele.
Bye.
See ya. Thanks, everybody.